If there's one thing that this movie teaches us, it's that you don't trust a pediatrician who makes house calls. Sorry to any pediatricians out there. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a pretty good, quick rundown of what the horror movie syllabus is all about, where basically we take a particular subgenre of horror and then we pick 3 movies from the subgenre to explore. It's fun. You should hang out with us while we do it. But right now we're doing our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series, where I take a recommendation of a horror movie from you guys, something I haven't seen before, and I watch it for the first time, and then I come back here and I let you know what I thought of it, let you know if what I think was good, what it was bad, but ultimately letting you know whether or not it is syllabus worthy, whether it would be worthy of being on my horror movie syllabus. As you've already seen from the thumbnail and the title of the video, the movie that we're talking about today is a movie called A Dark Place. And A Dark Place was recommended to me by the One Man Crew. The One Man Crew recommended this in our kidnapping video, a video about the subgenre kidnapping horror movies. But they were quick to point out that the movie isn't really about kidnapping. It's really about a mystery about a dead boy. So that is interesting because that's the only thing I had to go on when I watched this movie. I didn't do any other research for it other than to figure out which movie it was, because there was a couple different movies called Dark Place, so I had to make sure I had the right one. But that was it. But that was all I did. I didn't watch a trailer or anything like that. I just knew mystery about a dead boy. And so I was down for that. I like a good mystery movie. So, and you know me, I love a dead boy. That's a joke. That's a joke, sort of. But I was down for a good mystery movie, so I was hyped to see what this was going to be about. So I put it in, and what did I think? Did I love it? Did I hate it? Why don't we go ahead and find out right now? As I said, the movie that I watched is A Dark Place. Dark Place came out in 2019 and apparently is also called A Steel Country, which is a terrible title, but frankly, A Dark Place is kind of a rote and generic title too. Neither of them is particularly good, and neither of them do a really great job of describing this movie, but that's okay because the movie kind of stands on its own for what it is. And what it is kind of an interesting take on a well-worn topic, is how I'll put it. But if you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a garbage man who is on the spectrum some way. It's not really made clear in the movie, but he has some sort of autism or something like that. And he finds out about a missing boy on his route, from a family that's on his route. And it turns out the boy winds up dead, and nobody is really investigating it as anything other than an accident. But when he has a conversation with the boy's mother, he gets into his head that maybe it's not an accident and maybe something more sinister is at play. So he starts his own little investigation in the small town that he lives in, where everybody kind of knows him, and he starts ruffling feathers and people start getting upset. And is he uncovering some uncomfortable truths, or is he just getting people really pissed off at him because he's asking questions about somebody that has died and making things uncomfortable for people? Or is it both? And I won't go into further than that because I don't want to spoil it for you, but the movie has a really strong and interesting setup. The idea of this, we're just going to say autistic man who is doing this investigation, is kind of like fixated on it and driven to look into it, is a really cool, interesting premise to start with. And I really like it. It's the strongest part of the movie because of the performance of Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott, who plays our lead character, Donnie. And you might recognize him from several things, actually, but probably mostly from Sherlock, the TV show Sherlock, where he plays Moriarty, and he's absolutely fantastic in that. He is equally really good here because he's so compelling. And I say that kind of hedging myself a little bit because his performance rides the line of caricature. When he's playing Donnie, this mildly autistic man, he slides to slide into like Rain Man territory every now and again. He starts to get a little bit big with it, but then he kind of draws it back in a little bit. And at the end of the day, I'm compelled every time he's on screen, which is pretty much the whole movie. Like, he's fascinating. His performance is fascinating, in part because he's not a lovable, you know, goofy guy like Raymond and Rain Man. You know, he's not just comic relief or cute. Like he's a little bit of an ass. You know, he's a little bit of a jerk, and he's also not very smooth. He does some really kind of boneheaded things because he thinks he's slick, but he's really not. And that really humanized him to me. I really like this portrayal of this man with this, you know, with autism, who is not, you know, like super heroic with some mental abilities that are just astounding, nor was he like this lovable, you know, like goofy, strange person. He was just a guy who has, you know, autism, who is just as flawed as any other person. And I liked that. I thought he was really interesting as a lead character, and the performance of Andrew Scott really sells that. It really helped to sell the whole performance, the whole concept, and kind of tie me into it. And side note, I didn't know this till I did the research after this movie. Andrew Scott is Irish, and I never would have guessed. From this movie, definitely wouldn't have guessed that. If I have a knock about this, is that I wanted to actually know a little bit more about Donnie. You're given some of his backstory, that he had a one night stand with this woman and has a child, a daughter from it now, and he likes this woman, but he has not got the connection with her. He doesn't understand that she's not into him, and you understand he's got a little bit of anger issues, and he's got his mother at home who's very religious, and you know you get some insights into what his life is like. But he's a really interesting character, a well-rounded character who has a lot of good points. Like he's a very good dad, or trying to be a very good dad to his daughter, and he's got a lot of, you know, noble qualities about him. But he also has these, you know, moments where he's just really pushy or really annoying, and so it's an interesting character. And I wanted to know more about him. You don't get that more about him, but you do get a lot. And that's, I think, the strength of this movie, is that it really isn't a horror movie, and we should just start with that right now. It's not a horror movie so much as it is a mystery, and it's not even so much a mystery as it is a kind of a character study of the characters in this town, primarily this character of Donnie, but also his coworker, his daughter, his baby mama, the, you know, the other characters you run into in the movie, like the sheriff, the doctor, and stuff like that. And it really is focused on that, and that is the strength of the movie. It's a good thing to focus on that, because that is where it is strength. The strength is lying is with those characters, and all the actors there are good. Every single person in this movie, I think, is doing a good to really good job. Andrew Scott is doing the best, but like the woman playing his coworker, Brana Waugh, I'm butchering that name, I'm sure. I think she's Irish also, but she's fantastic as well. Really good acting here, and really helped keep me drawn to the movie, and that's important because the story is pretty rote. If I'm being honest with you, for a mystery, it's pretty predictable. It's not difficult to solve this. There's nothing terribly revolutionary here. It's like standard TV mystery stuff. And that's okay, because the interesting thing in the movie is not solving the mystery. It's Donnie solving the mystery. You know, him as the investigator, you know, dealing with his autistic aspects, and way he interacts with people and doesn't necessarily pick up on certain cues and things like that, is the part that's interesting about this movie. The actual mystery, it's super predictable. It's super obvious, I think, and I think you'll think so too. The filmmaking is decent. It's perfectly fine. Like I said, it really feels like a procedural TV show more than anything else. Like the production is kind of on par with a television show, a good one, you know what I mean? But it doesn't feel super cinematic. I can see the director, whose name is Simon Fellows, trying to make it feel cinematic. And to be interested, to be fair, he works regularly as a director. He gets a lot of work, a lot of direct to video type movies and stuff like that. But he is a cinematic director. He does make movies, but this feels more like a TV movie. But that's not necessarily a knock on it. Like, you know, TV movies are good. TV these days is really good, and this feels like it has a good TV quality to it. You know, and so it does its job. It's serviceable directing, it's serviceable filming, really good acting, and a basic plot. It's a simplistic plot, and the mystery unfolds rather simplistically too. It's like Donnie goes someplace, he talks to somebody, they tell him something, he goes and follows up on that, he finds something else out, has another conversation. There's not a lot of surprise. There's not a lot of twists here. There's not really a twist here at all. Like I said, it really is more about just Donnie and the experience he has doing this investigation. You know, this garbage man turned investigator. It's fun. It's interesting. One other thing I did like with this movie is that the subject matter is kind of dark. And like, again, I don't want to spoil the movie too much for you, but it is a really predictable movie. But you've got a dead kid, a kid who's dead, a young kid who's dead. You've got, you know, these allegations of abuse going on. You've got Donnie's daughter who's in a bad household situation. She's not necessarily abused or anything like that, but you can tell it's not a good environment for a child to be brought up in. And overall, the movie has this idea of this kind of small town, dead end town, with all these people that are kind of hopeless. Like there's just not a lot of hope in this town. Everybody kind of just seems like downtrodden and beaten down by life, and it's kind of like this morose feeling that permeates the town. And I like that. I like this whole idea of this town that is just kind of darker. That's why the movie's title, A Dark Place, actually winds up working fairly well for the movie, contrary to what I was saying earlier. It's just kind of a rote and plain title. But the place does feel dark. It feels oppressed. And it's not anything overt. It's just like this general sense of like everybody not living their life the way they wanted to. And it's not really going the way they thought it was going to go. And this general sense of unhappiness that permeates the entire movie is great. I really like that part of the movie. I just wish that it had a little bit more up its sleeve. I think that the premise of the autistic investigator who's just compelled to look into this when nobody else will is great. That's a great setup. I like that they're willing to go there in terms of these kind of little heavier themes without getting too dark or too graphic or anything like that. This the idea of kids in peril and general malaise of the town and people not doing good things and people doing some really awful things. It's great. It goes there. It's not afraid to go there. It doesn't show stuff, but it discusses this stuff. So if you're sensitive to those things, think about that before you watch this movie. But I like that it didn't shy away from those topics. I do wish that there was something more to the narrative. I really do. I wish it had a little more up its sleeve in terms of a surprise or a twist or something that wasn't quite so predictable because man, 20 minutes in this movie, I felt like I had the whole thing figured out and was just waiting for Donnie to catch up to me. But again, it's really more about the journey than about the destination in this movie. I just wish the destination would have been a little bit more satisfying. It's not at all a deal breaker for the movie because, again, I don't think that's the focus of the movie. But the movie had an opportunity to be something incredibly noteworthy if it would have done something a little bit more surprising with the mystery aspect of it, and it kind of drops the ball on that point. But does dropping the ball on that point mean it doesn't make the syllabus? Let's find out. So as always, it's time for us to ask the question, is it syllabus worthy? And the answer is no. It's not syllabus worthy, as you probably guessed from the review. And the reason is obvious. The noteworthy thing about this movie is Andrew Scott's performance as Donnie, the character of Donnie. Donnie is an interesting character, and his action, his investigation is interesting, but the investigation itself is not. Watching Donnie interact with people, trying to sneak information out of them, trying to con them into doing stuff, and very obviously not being bought into. It's fun. It's interesting. It's a neat thing, and I could get into this more as a TV show. If this was a TV show where Donnie goes around like Hardy Boy style, trying to solve local crimes and investigate them as this autistic man who's kind of a little socially inept. I could be down for that. That would be kind of cool. And you also kind of build out his character and his relationships a little bit more, his backstory. That would be cool. I would be down for that. But as a movie, it leaves a lot to be desired in that mystery aspect of it. It's just not enough mystery. It's very minimal suspense. Like I said, it's not even a horror movie at all. And I think One Man Crew was trying to tell me that in his comment, that it's really more of a mystery slash drama. It's really more of a drama than a mystery. And it's definitely more of a mystery than a horror movie. There's a minimal suspense in this movie. It's just not really creepy at all. Like you know me, I'm liberal about calling things horror, but I would be very reluctant to call this movie a horror movie because it really is more drama and just kind of a dark. It's more Mystic River than it is Twin Peaks. If you follow me on that, and then I'm also a little torn on the ending. I won't spoil the ending for you here, but I can't decide if I think it's satisfying or not. In one sense, it went with a very obvious ending that I have complained about before on this channel. I'm not going to say because it will be a spoiler, but I usually complain about when things end this way. But on the other hand, I kind of liked that it ended this way because it had implications for the characters that I would have liked to, when I think about it, I was like, that's an interesting implication for this character. I wonder how that's going to shake out. Like, what happens next? Like, I would love to see a what happens next in this movie. That's why I think a TV series would be interesting, because what happens next to the characters and how the town deals with the revelations from the ending would be an interesting story, but this movie doesn't give that to you. And so like, I'm almost more interested in what would happen next than I am in what happened at the end of this movie. So is that a satisfying ending? I don't know. I like the way it left it, but I also know it's never going to explore that. So maybe ultimately not that satisfying. But that didn't color my opinion too much. I actually still enjoyed the movie. I just feel like it's like a fine way to pass the time, but it's not a movie that's going to stick with you. It's not a movie that's going to resonate with you long term. It's not going to be anybody's favorite movie. It's just a perfectly fine movie. Like I said, it feels like a movie of the week almost, but maybe better than that. And the real shine is Andrew Scott. If you're an Andrew Scott fan, if you like Moriarty from Sherlock, or you've seen him in other things, this is definitely worth watching because he's really good. And like I said, so many times in this movie, he could have slid off into being just a character or being something borderline offensive in his portrayal, and he just pulls it back. Every time he feels like he's going that way, he pulls it back and gives it a little bit more nuance and makes it a little bit more interesting. And it's really a really compelling performance. That's what I keep coming back to, compelling. It's not that it's great, it's just that it's captivating. I'm really interested in what he's doing on the screen, and it's the best part about this movie by far. Like I said, the other actors, like the character who's playing his mom, the actress playing his coworker, they're really good too. They're bringing really good stuff, and they don't have enough to do. Like there's a part that his coworker comes into that they kind of just gets blown past. Like, where did it come from? It kind of feels a little bit like it's coming out of nowhere. Like they kind of set it up, they kind of tease it, and then when it happens, you're like, what? And then it's just dropped. It doesn't really go anywhere, and it's unfortunate because that's the stuff that I'm finding the most interesting stuff, and the mystery behind it is a little bit rote. And in that sense, it did feel a little bit like Twin Peaks to me, because Twin Peaks, the mystery was supposed to be just the backdrop for this quirky town with all these weird characters in it. And instead, people got fixated on the mystery. And I feel like this movie does the same thing. It fixates on the mystery, which is, again, fairly predictable, instead of just focusing on these interesting characters that they had. But it really, when it is focusing on those, and it does do quite a bit, I just wanted more. But when it does do that, it is successful. Like I said, and when it leaves you wanting more, maybe that's the sign of a good movie. I think it's a pretty good movie. I don't think it's an amazing movie. It's definitely not one that's going to make the syllabus, but it's one I could say I'd recommend to you guys. Again, passing the time, hour and a half. It's not going to blow your socks off or anything like that, but I do think it's worth a watch. I do think that performance is great. So if you haven't seen it, that's my recommendation to you. Thank you, One Man Crew, for suggesting this one, because I do think it was really interesting to check out. I do think that Andrew Scott is definitely on my radar now. It's somebody who's one to watch for more stuff of his. So I'm really glad I got a chance to see this one and talk about it with you guys. But now it's time to talk about a horror trivia pursuit card. As you know, I'm going to answer this question. I haven't read it before, reading it for the first time here on camera, and we're going to go ahead and answer it without cutting, so you know I don't cheat. And for this one, for a dark place, let's go with the psychological category, because if this is horror at all, it's psychological horror. So we're going to go with the psychological here. And the question is, 1945's Dead of Night had how many separate directors? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think I've even seen Dead of Night. I'm almost positive I've never seen Dead of Night. So I have zero idea. I don't know anything about it. I don't know, but clearly, just from the context, I can decide to take a guess. And without, I want to give you a chance to think about it, but let's just be honest. Neither of us right now is thinking that the answer is one, right? That's a goofy question to ask if there's only one director. So we know it's not one. So we know it's a multiple. There's more than one director. And so this is where I'm at. I'm already kind of just going through deductive reasoning, or just, educated guess, or maybe not even educated guess, just kind of like, trying to justify a guess, because I have nothing to go on. 1945 is modern horror film, pre-scope of the syllabus, but when we're doing the supplement stuff, we are going to be talking a little bit more about movies that are pre-1970. So at one point, maybe we'll be talking about this movie, but I'm not familiar with it. I'm not familiar with Dead of Night. In 1945, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. And if you do, maybe you already know the answer to this one. But I feel like even if you've seen the movie, you wouldn't necessarily know the answer to this, because unless they list all the directors in the movie's credits, I don't know. But I prattled on. Let's go ahead and make our guesses right now. I am going to guess 3. And I'm going to guess 3 because 2 seems easy, right? I know it's not 1. 2 seems too easy. 4 seems too many. So I'm going to go with 3. That's kind of like some SAT logic of like, well, I'm going to say C because I haven't said C in a while. That's basically my logic on this one. So let's see if my logic paid off. How many directors? 4. 4 directors. Alberto Cavalcanti, Charles Crichton, Robert Hammer, and Basil Dearden. 4. That's shocking me. 4 is too many, guys. That's too many cooks in the kitchen. Wow, 4 directors. That is a noteworthy question. That is worth mentioning as a question. So I was going to say this is kind of a silly question, but no. When the answer is 4, yeah, that's a noteworthy trivia fact for a horror movie for sure. Pretty good question. Didn't get it right. I don't feel that bad that I didn't get it right, but if you got it right, I'd like to hear about it. Tell me more about the movie Dead of Night. Is there one that's worth checking out? Is it something that maybe is syllabus worthy? Because we talk about that. Let me know in the comments below if you know anything about it, and let me know if you guessed 3, 2, 1. Well, how many directors did you guess? If you've stuck around this long, I really appreciate you. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope if you check out this movie that you enjoyed as well. I did. Like I said, not syllabus worthy does not mean it's not worth watching. Definitely check it out, but manage your expectations. And until next week when we talk about something else that's completely different, class dismissed.